Fake fruit! Fake! Fake! Fake grapefruits! Fake! Liar! You liar!
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the Prepared Mind channel. Good gracious, we're in big trouble in this country, folks. Just the attitude I've gotten from everybody out there. Emails, messages, phone calls. This country is in big trouble. I really hope you're prepared. People who don't want to be preppers, they're just doing a disservice to themselves. People who don't want to be patriots, they're just doing a disservice to themselves. As I drove back from today's contracting mayhem, I thought about what it must be like to be one of these deep state creeps. Pardon me while I fix this. One of these deep state creeps. What do? They go to work every day, whether they're in Washington, D.C. or somewhere around the country as a federal employee, whether they're state employees and even local government employees. They have the American flag hanging up in their offices, in the hallways, out front on a flagpole, and they look at it and they hate the American flag. Can you imagine if you were in communist Russia or communist China and you had a government job? You would walk up and you'd look at that damn flag and you'd hate it, you'd despise it, you'd do everything you could to sabotage it. Right? That I know I would. I'd be like, our fucking commies, right? That's what I would say. Well, for decades and decades and decades, Democrats have done just that. The bureaucracy in DC, the FBI, the Attorney General's office, the DEA, all these people that work for the government that hate our country, they look at the flag with more than disdain. They look at it with anger and hatred. That's how they look at our flag, our country. And every day they've gone to work and they sabotage it. They put their stooges in power and they hate this country. They hate everything about it. They hate the Constitution, which restricts them. They hate the Constitution because it's taught you have freedom. It's taught you the government is limited. They hate the Declaration of Independence. They hate it because it empowers us. It reminds us of what we, the people, have and what our rights are and what our duties are as people. They hate us. And now they've got so much power, they can just step all over us. They step all over us. They hate us. I'm going to give you a little taste of it. It's just, I got to tell you about this. This one story that came up. Where the heck is it? There it is, right there. This is how much this is what brought this on. I read this at my lunchtime today. There was a man named Fincher. That's his last name. I can't remember his first name right now. And he's just a regular human being. And he's a good guy. And he has an FFL. That's a federal firearms license. So he is completely compliant with the law when he buys guns and sells guns. He runs his little FFL business out of his house. This is how much these Washington, D.C. creeps hate us. Well, they went into his house. They stormed his house, folks. A dozen ATF agents with AR-15s and tactical gear, all clad for war, went to a gun dealer's home in Oklahoma. And they raided him. They intimidated him. I'm going to tell you about it. They go to work in the morning and they spit on the American flag, and then they go out and they screw us over. Well, a state representative in Oklahoma is demanding an investigation. I don't want an investigation. I want them to kick them out of their fucking state. Whether it's Oklahoma or Texas or Mississippi, it doesn't matter. Kick them out of the state. They have no jurisdiction. See, when you ask for an FFL, you're asking for permission from the federal government to exercise your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. And you can't keep them, you can't bear them if you don't own them. So you ought to be able to buy and sell without restriction. Every last one of these ATF are a bunch of cowards, every last one of them. So let me tell you more about the story, and then you tell me what you think. Put your comments down below. Spark a conversation with other people in the comments. I know here on the preparedmind.club, it's the premium payers. Same with Subscribestar. We're all here and we're a smaller group, the inner circle. People who are supporting this show with guerrilla funding. And that's what keeps this channel going, folks. Keeps the information flowing, keeps us talking. Is you supporting the channel and supporting each other and supporting the Constitution and supporting this country and the Declaration of Independence that tells us to kick the ever-loving snot out of tyrants. Now, 7 vehicles showed up, lights a-flashing, a dozen ATF agents armed with fully automatic AR-15s. I'm sure they weren't the ones that we little civilians are allowed to have. I'm sure they were M16s, folks. But whoever wrote this story called them AR-15s. I'm sure they had full auto or select fire M16s. And they intimidated Mr. Fincher at his home by raiding it. And then they handcuffed him to his deck. He was surrounded by a dozen agents and they handcuffed him to his fucking deck. Now, Mr. Fincher also had his son there, his 13-year-old son. That's 8th grade, folks, an 8th grader, a kid. Now, this is what Mr. Fincher had to say. Here's the quote. It was like the Trump raid. That's what he felt like. Now they've created another person who completely understands and sides with Trump because now he knows what it feels like. He continues, Mr. Fincher says, they called me out onto my deck and handcuffed me. My son was there and saw the whole thing. He's 13 years old. They held me on the porch for about an hour. I was surrounded by agents. One by one, they yelled at me about what I was doing. In my mind, I decided if they were going to beat me up over every little thing, I'm done. As soon as I said, quote, if you want my FFL, you can have it. One of the agents pulled out a piece of paper and said, well, then sign here. He had made 3 copies of this for him to sign in case I screwed one up. It was exactly what they wanted. I was shocked. Folks, the ATF showed up at his house with the intent to harass, intimidate, violate his rights, scare his son, scare his neighbors, scare Americans. They hate this country and they hate freedom and they hate the fact that you and I have the Second Amendment to back up our First Amendment. And we have our First Amendment to talk about our Second Amendment. They hate us, folks. Now, the article says this. During the raid, ATF agents pressured Fincher to terminate his federal firearms license. They presented him with a prepared termination document and coerced him at gunpoint into signing them, using the threat of further action against him and his firearms dealing acquaintances. Oh, isn't that just dandy? So he and his friends, who are FFL license holders, they're not doing anything wrong. They're not violating any rules. They're not breaking any laws. They're not hurting anyone. They're not going to Christian schools and murdering children like these sick, perverted, twisted, deranged, personality disorder having freaks out there who go to Christian schools and kill children and adults. and they go to malls and they try and kill everyone they can. And they go to stores and they try and kill everyone they can. Those are left-wing lunatics. The right-wingers sit in their homes, abide by the rules, have FFLs, don't commit mass murder. And this is how they get treated. They show up with prepared documentation to get people to give up their licenses. Let me tell you a little more. You guys know what a 1911 is, right? Well, a small version of that is the Colt Commander. So a Colt Commander, 5 Glocks, an AK, a Polytech pre-ban gun worth thousands of dollars. All these guns, thousands and thousands of dollars, were among the firearms the ATF loaded up as soon as Fincher surrendered his FFL. Folks, this was illegal. It's unconstitutional. It's intimidation. And we would all have a hard time, including me, resisting once handcuffed to the deck and verbally berated for an hour. Do you see what's going on? Hello, redcoats. We're out here. Are you listening, America? Are you listening, federal government? I'll remind you again, I have a family member who is well aware of what a bunch of cowards the FFL are, or rather the BATF agents are. They're a bunch of sissies, according to him, hiding behind their badges and greater numbers so they can overwhelm people. Am I pissed off? Yes. Am I recommending violence, dangerous, or harmful behavior? No. This is what they have in mind. This is your government. This is your government. This is your government. Now, I'm going to tell you more about our elected representatives that are there to help us out. Mitch McConnell, he froze up again. The fossil froze up again. Well, don't worry. His doctor said he's okay to return to business. He's just fine. He's seized up like the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. A little bit of rain and he's fucking stuck. Well, today, Marge Taylor Greene let him know all about it. She called him out. And she says he's no longer fit for office. And, quote, his family should be ashamed. When I read that, I did not cheer. Not for Marge Taylor Greene, not for the Republicans, not for our country. In fact, it disgusted me. She fucking disgusted me with this one. The entire House of Representatives should be ashamed of themselves. They're a bunch of a-holes. They should have impeached Biden years ago, especially after the Afghanistan debacle. Especially after the evidence is poured out that Hunter Biden's laptop is real, that what is on it is real, and that Joe Biden, right, Representative Nancy Mace, you're all over this, right? Oh yeah, tens of millions of dollars that they have coerced and extorted and bribed out of people. And they haven't impeached him. The House, the Republican Party, entire Washington, D.C. should be ashamed of themselves. Unbelievable what is going on. Are you prepared for more? Right? And then this came up today. James Woods, actor, conservative, blacklisted. The man who came up and said, for the love of God, do something. And I can't help but agree with the man. He has now issued a dire warning about government, about our destiny, about what is going on. And this is what he said, a very simple quote. They want you in invisible chains. That's right. I couldn't agree more with Mr. Woods. They want you in invisible chains. They want us to give up, to give in, to bend the knee, to put on a blindfold, to stick our fingers in our ears and not to say a word. Just shut your mouths, America. Give up your First Amendment right and surrender your Second Amendment right. Now, what right does the the BATF have to come to your house and take weapons away. Well, perhaps those weapons were in some sort of, I don't know, 3-day, 5-day, 7-day. I don't know what Oklahoma's rules are for holding weapons under an FFL license until they have to be released to the owner, the buyer, the purchaser. Is that why they took them? Because, well, he's no longer an FFL holder, so he can't hold those weapons for someone else. See how this works? It's against the law to intimidate people at gunpoint while handcuffed, to be berated and then told, why don't you just give up your license? This guy should sue the fuck out of him. That's okay. The government doesn't hurt us. They don't hurt a bit. They'll just print the money and pay the guy off. They got what they wanted out of this. They intimidated someone. Well, all it's done is piss me off and everyone else who now knows about this, because you, my friends, you are going to share this fucking story and wake people up. This is what they're going to do from now on. They're going to overwhelm people with force, show up armed to the teeth, pretending to look tough with their little dark blue jackets with yellow letters on them that say ATF or FBI or DEA. Name your government institution. The IRS is now armed. Even the fucking Postal Service, Department of Homeland Security, the DHS. Oh, I feel so safe with our government. They're supposed to be getting criminals. Instead, they're coming after you, America. They want you in invisible chains. They want you to surrender to them. Are you going to? Are you going to? I read this story and it made me very sad. A Navy veteran, folks, right? Someone who served this country in the military. Navy veteran, retired, a commander, Scott Harris, age 62, walking his dog. And by the way, it was a dog that was rescued from Ukraine. He was out in his neighborhood on Saturday night. And he was brutally attacked, brutally beaten, and robbed. Someone cold-cocked him from behind, knocked him unconscious. He had a brain injury, broken teeth, and over 100 stitches. That's how bad he was beaten. Now, this is what he told the news people. This retired Navy commander, a veteran. He says, there was a large party going on across the street that in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have walked near. And the next thing I remember, I'm in the emergency room because I had just been blacked out. I just kind of blacked out after that, he says. There's a huge lesson here, folks. Huge lesson. You know what that lesson is? Awareness. Awareness. Making good decisions. His situational awareness, his spidey senses, especially as a retired veteran, should have been stay the hell away from that place and watch them. Don't turn your back on them. He turned his back on him, walking his dog, got cold cocked from behind, knocked out, robbed, and beaten within an inch of his life, busted the teeth out of his head. That doesn't happen, folks, unless someone's putting the hurt on you while he's knocked out. Now, I'll tell you what I did today. I got out of my vehicle and I went to walk, and there was one person to the right. And up ahead, another 100 feet, there was someone with their back to me. Person on the right, I watched the entire time I walked by. I checked to my left, nothing else there. Situational awareness. Check to the right, keep an eye on this guy. Walked past him, turned my head, walked, looked at him out of my right eye, make sure he wasn't turning. He turned a little and went back to talking on his phone. The guy up ahead had his back to me. Could have been talking on his phone the way he was standing. Are these two communicating? Is there going to be an ambush? As I got closer to the guy with his back to me, he started to turn. I moved to the left away from him to keep a minimal safe distance between us. Now, I could have just messed this guy up left and right unless he pulled a weapon out or a taser to come at me. But I was fully aware of what's going on around me because I don't trust anyone. I don't care what they're dressed like. I don't care what color they are. You have to maintain situational awareness. You have to maintain the concept, the idea that someone at any point or a group of people could attack you. That the ATF, the DEA, the DHS, fucking Border Patrol, you don't know who's going to come after you. You just don't know. This whole day is just reminded me of all the troubles we're having in this country. This entire day. Let me tell you who the government is. Do they give a shit about you? Well, in Georgia, folks, their governor, Republican, right? Oh, he's a Republican. Brian Kemp's he's a Republican. Well, in Georgia, Fani Willis, a little chicken shit district attorney from Fulton County, is doing all she can to smear President Trump and his entire cabinet, his attorneys, his legal representation. That's what an attorney is, their counsel, legal counsel, advising him of his rights, advising him of his duties as president. In fact, as president of the United States, he's actually exempt when they say he committed these crimes of questioning the election results. Well, Brian Kemp has rejected the efforts to remove Fani Willis from her office for, as far as I'm concerned, with dereliction of duty, racketeering. Because what has she been working with the Attorney General, the Department of Justice, the feds? Right, we've already had one guy, Jack Smith, thrown out on his ass out of court for his bullshit antics against Trump. And Fani Willis, she's going to keep going. In fact, you know what Trump said today? Not doing it. He's not going to appear for his arraignment. We are coming to a point very quickly, a very hot point, a very nasty crossroads in this country. And I'm not saying that we're going to have civil war. I'm not saying we're going to even have social or societal or partisan conflict. I'm just saying we're getting much closer to it. People have chosen sides. It was years ago when I started using these very hand gestures. It used to be that Republicans and Democrats had a little difference between them, and they could still talk. They could come together, but this animosity between them has grown and grown and grown and grown until there's this huge gulf that is insurmountable. It cannot be repaired. No bridge can be created between Republicans and Democrats. Well, that's the political crap and games they play. In all truth, folks, it's government and the people. And there's a gulf between the government and the people that has grown so much that the people cannot talk to the government. And the government couldn't give a shit about the people. That's where we're at. Brian Kemp, scumbag governor of Georgia, he is not going to do anything to bring Fani Willis, scumbag district attorney, under control. So instead of bringing back trust in government and holding government officials, government agents, government district attorneys, government prosecutors, holding them accountable for what they've done, all he has done is show the people that we cannot trust the government to do their jobs or keep themselves in check. The government is out of fucking control at every level. And I've talked about it, the federal level, the state level, even the local level. At the local level, you and I, we have a say. We can go down to a school board meeting. We can go down to a city hall meeting or a county supervisor's meeting, and we can get involved and let them know, see this face? This person's not happy with how you're violating our rights. And people are doing that. God bless them, and we all should. But we are going to get our asses handed to us if we don't start getting louder. And it's going to create even more animosity between government and the people. And the Democrats and Republicans are going to play their little games where they pretend to give a shit when they really don't. And they really don't. This is America, folks. This sounds a lot like a bullshit banana republic where saying that they're about justice or law and order is just Persian bazaar coffee house bullshit, they tell us. Now, have I violated the law? Have I broken the law? Hell no. Am I well within my rights to say all these things? Yes, I am. Does the government like me? No, they do not. Why would they? I'm trying to expose them. People like James Woods, John Voight are celebrities, actors who are now blacklisted. But they're speaking up, trying to use what gravitas they have to wake America up. This is what we do. This is my mission here. While I can, while I'm allowed, while they let me. Are you going to fight against these people? Or are you going to allow them to psychologically handcuff you to your deck and then psychologically batter you with stories of abuse, and abuse that we hear at every single level of government and its interaction with us, whether it's the ATF and the FBI going after people with their guns and parents. That's right, the FBI intimidated parents at school board meetings, or whether we're talking about the local cop, the local Barney Fife asswipe who wants to go down to a business and say, you can't be open. We have a pandemic and therefore you have no rights. Are you ready for what's coming next, folks? Because it's coming hard and it's coming fast. I could go on all day long with more and more examples of this shit. And when I say that my time is probably limited here at the Prepared Mind channel, it's because social media is part of the game. They created it and it got out of control, and they didn't like that. They thought it would be used to convince all of us to accept socialism, to put on those invisible chains, to to talk to each other and say, you need to straighten up, John. You need to be a good boy and be quiet. Don't you know all of us out here are judging you, and that's not a good thing. You need to fall in line. You better take a knee, pal. Well, I thought today also about my time in service. How I was really pissed off at the abuse I saw and how I needed to stick up for others in my unit and the things that were done in order to expose corruption and the sacrifice that is made based on those decisions. I sacrificed then and it helped people. Got me in a whole boatload of trouble, and I wasn't going to have anything to do with these people anymore. And people got in trouble. That was way back, decades ago. And the same scumbags, the same promise I was made by Staff Sergeant Anderson. He said, hey, John, if you leave, there's going to be more of them and less of us to keep this shit straight. That's a paraphrase, but he did say there's going to be less of us and more of them. And I was like, I'm not going to participate in an organization that is willing to allow this to be done to its own people. Well, social media, yeah, it's done with us, folks. It's just a facade of what it should be. Twitter, aka X, right? X is the app X. They have in their how do you put this right? Their community guidelines, right? That we're supposed to all be good people to each other. Well, they've invited an anti-white hate group to help create policy on hate speech. That's what X is doing. So Elon Musk, by doing what he's doing, he's trying to play both sides of the political ideology. He's trying to play to the idea of freedoms and liberties. At the same time, he's allowing them to come at us with all of their bullshit. And I'll tell you what, Mr. Elon Musk, you want to play both sides? That's like standing in the middle of a busy highway on the line. You're going to get hit, and it's going to come at you from one way or the other. Eventually, you're going to get hit. Or they'll just close our lane down and say, no more free speech for you guys. By the way, the anti-white hate group, guess which one it is? Do you know? The ADL, folks, the Anti-Defamation League. It used to be a civil rights group. You think it still is? And who brought this up? Folks, there are people out there who are willing to fight for us. We need to also fight for ourselves. We do. Jake Shields, an MMA fighter, he posted today, hey, the head of the ADL, which has demonstrated it is anti-white, that it's anti-American. He said they met with the head of X, right, to determine what is hate speech. The ADL, folks, says that it's it's hate speech to say it's okay to be white. And it's hate speech to say white lives matter. That's right. That's hate speech, according to the ADL. They want to control your speech. The Anti-Defamation League, folks, used to be about you can't say anything bad about Jews. You can't say anything bad. You can't say anything bad about the Holocaust. You can't be a Holocaust denier, right? That's who they used to go after. People who are Holocaust deniers, right? Even criticizing the numbers they threw out. When I was in 7th grade and we learned about the Holocaust, it was, hey, there's the Nazis killed 3 million Jews. Now I don't even know what number they're up to. It went to 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, 10 million. Right now they're saying that there's more Jews were killed than there were actual Jews in Europe. And the other day I spoke to a Jewish man who is in America via South Africa, but he said his family escaped Eastern Europe during the Nazi attempt to kill everybody and fled down there. Well, I mean, if a lot of these Jews fled intelligently at that time, then how could they all be killed? Now, let's take a cue. Let's take our thoughts from these Jews that were smart enough and capable enough to escape Nazi Germany and Nazified Europe. They had somewhere to run to get away. Where can you get away now? You're trapped. We can't get away. We're surrounded, and they're coming after us by tearing down the guards, the protections of the Constitution that were established, and they've been well established in law and fact and tradition and culture and a historic understanding of our world. The government has been, and always will be abusive unless it is heavily restrained. And the people are ever vigilant to keep them restrained. Well, my vigilance has been here this entire time, my whole life, but guess what? Right? It's not enough. They're still coming after us. It is now time, folks. I'm going to give up the microphone to your question, or questions, as it were. It's time for the inner circle. Your voice comes next. Here we are. Mr. Ooman is in the house. Ooman, I want to thank you personally again for everything you do for everyone every day. You're always here. You're always trying to keep people on their toes, keep them from being assholes. Thank you, sir, very much. Now, name redacted, who is a continuous supplier of commentary, questions, opinions, thoughts. And I want to thank you as well, and all of you who are here supporting this channel, supporting freedom and liberty, supporting free speech, and helping provide, right, the vehicle through which we can direct others by sharing the internet address, by saying, hey, thumbs up, share this stuff. Damn it, wake up before you wake up and it's too late. So name redacted says, John, we need to be in steady condition orange, more than yellow and not red yet. That's interesting, name redacted. I really appreciate that thought, right? We have this color scale. The color scale. I got green, everything's great. Then you got yellow, kind of like stoplights. Yellow, caution. And then, well, we're used to red, means stop, danger. Well, orange is kind of, right, a combination of yellow and red. I think on the defense condition, the DEFCON scale, we've got all these colors, right? Yeah, orange. Are we still in orange, name redacted? I mean, I will agree with you. Yes, we're in orange, but I want to question the orange. Hot spots of SHTF. Mr. Fincher in Oklahoma was in red as he was handcuffed to his deck. You know who that's for? That's for the agent's protection. Did you know that? When a policeman feels threatened, do you know that they have the authority to handcuff you? Because they feel threatened. So they can handcuff you. And if you resist, you're now impeding. You're now interfering with the police investigation. If you don't allow them to handcuff you so they feel safe. Talk about a bunch of chicken shits. Cops have guns. Cops have radios to call more cops. Cops have chemical agents. Cops have tasers. Cops in their vehicles have either a shotgun or an M16. Cops typically pull people over and call for backup. Now, I'm not picking on cops. I'm giving an example of police and government authority and power and how we as helpless little citizens are supposed to obey them. So Mr. Fincher is handcuffed to the deck for the protection of the ATF agents. Talk about a bunch of chicken shit cowards. The man sits down in a chair. Shouldn't that be good enough? Shouldn't it? It should be. But for their safety, that's how chicken shit they are. He was in condition red. He thought he was going to get his ass kicked. He thought he could possibly be killed. Imagine this, 12 agents. What if they decided that they felt so unsafe and he made a move? What if they said Mr. Fincher made a move to grab one of their rifles? They unhandcuff him and then shoot him and say, well, we unhandcuffed him and he got unruly and lunged for my gun. I had to shoot him to protect myself. These people are cowards, absolute chicken shit cowards. Now, I've had law enforcement friends, cops, highway patrolmen, city police, county sheriff's deputies. And they're not, the ones that I have had as friends are not cowards. A friend of mine who's a California Highway Patrol, also a former Marine. And, he pulled a guy over and had him handcuffed, and he was just had him leaning against his car. And I walked over in the middle of an arrest and just started talking to Bob, because Bob was fucking Bob. And I was like, what's going on here? And he's like, this fucking clown driving around town. Second time we caught him driving and speeding, no license and, no registration. And he's talking to me face to face and just totally ignoring this guy who's just standing there, right? He didn't throw him on the ground or throw him in the car. He's not afraid. He's not fearful. It's just the difference between people who are interested in law and order and not making everyone feel like they have to be victimized by the cops for the cops to feel good about themselves. It's just chicken shit. I'm sorry, I digress. So Fincher saw condition red. I walked by those two guys today who, to me, it just felt out of place and suspicious. I don't know, was I in orange? Or was it just yellow? High caution. Nah, maybe it's just yellow. We should all have our situational awareness about us, folks, whether it's a block party and you're walking your dog, or whether you see too many flashing lights at one time and you're like, this just doesn't feel like a good place to be. This is where we're at, folks. This is our country. This is our country. Now, President Trump said, we will not comply in response, right? This is what he said for America. He declared, we will not comply because there's efforts now on a state level and nationally to reinstate cerveza bug lockdowns, mask requirements, and of course, they're going to want to push the Jim Jones juice and require us all to get that. They're going to try for it again. Well, what I say is bring it on. Bring it on, government. Let's see what you get away with this time. And I tell you what, I guarantee 90% of America will bend over and say, come and stick it to me again, Dr. Fauci. I was sent a message to Orlando today, and it's like, you know what? They're getting all of this ready. And Dr. Fauci is going to come out of his little hole in the ground, and he's going to stand up. And if he sees his shadow, it's 6 more weeks to flatten the curve. They'll drag that little crusty pile of crap out and try and scare the world again. It's coming. And you know what? I've gotten pictures and I've gotten details from many people around this country who were involved with government and with medicine at varying levels. They're just regular people, but they're hearing this, that they're starting to reinstate it, that they're trying to scare people. And people I know who are not conspiracy theorists are saying this. They're saying, man, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that everyone who is being told they're positive for cerveza bug because they get tested, just like last time, guess what? Everyone who gets tested, they're going to tell them you're positive, so that they go and they start telling everyone they know, oh my God, I tested positive for cerveza bug. So they get as many people out there aware it's going around. Well, folks, the common cold is a coronavirus, a cerveza bug. The way you can tell the government is lying is their lips are moving. Thank you, name redacted. And again, I wax long. Mr. Uman, let's do another one, brother. Let's put some more up there and see what we have. It's Charles Gentry. He says, I have been on condition orange for a while now. Name redacted, shading towards red by the day. And that's just it. What's the difference between, there's a big difference between green and yellow, right? Green is everything's fine. America's great. We're all free. Yay. Wave a flag. Go to work. Pay your fucking taxes. Yellow is, hey, things aren't looking so good around here anymore. And red is, you're fucked. You're now in it. So we're somewhere between, hey, things aren't looking so good and you're fucked. And all it takes is you to be involved in it. And you're right there, right now. All of a sudden you go from condition yellow or orange and you're now in it. Are you prepared up here? Are you prepared? Okay, thank you, Charles, for responding and keeping that conversation going. I've got many other topics to get to. Uman says, there have been a rash of what news is called swatting bomb threats at high schools in the Chicago area. I looked into it, says Uman, and it seems to be happening all over the country as well. Just in the last week, I found several from Chicago and others from Tulsa, Oklahoma, Huntsville, Texas, Oakland, California, New York, Pennsylvania, Baltimore, Maryland, and 2 in Lexington, Kentucky. Seems to stem from a TikTok challenge to get first day of school canceled by making bomb threats. Someone's going to get hurt. What a bunch of dumbasses. So there's a TikTok challenge to make a false bomb threat, to claim that there's a bomb threat, to make the threat or claim someone told you, well, that is against the law. It's against the law to make a false statement, especially when it concerns bombs or life-threatening situations. So somehow TikTok allows that. Thank you, China, because they control TikTok. Thank you, government, for allowing TikTok to allow that shit. Kind of like, well, I don't know if they've even stopped, but Twitter used to allow people who were minor attracted persons, in other words, pedophiles, perverts, and groomers, to continue their perverting, grooming, and trying to get children into their greasy, grimy mitts. They allowed that while they told people like you weren't allowed to talk about them and Jeffrey Epstein and Comet Ping Pong and the whole pizza and hot dog bunch. They are going to get people hurt with this. They're going to get people hurt with it. Now, when I was back in high school in the 80s, yeah, there were bomb threats that you'd hear about from time to time around the country. But now it's coordinated. Now the government gets to look at it and go, oh, yeah, these right-wing people, they're bomb threats. Yeah, it must be right-wingers. Interesting. Now, when I said that there's this gulf between people who want freedom and the government, I wasn't joking. There's a huge gulf between us. For the love of God, we want them to do something. Well, apparently the Department of Justice under Merrick Garland, but God, I fucking hate that guy. Merrick Garland, slimy little weasel-looking jackass. Well, apparently his Department of Justice has told Jim Jordan, Representative Republican Jim Jordan, it will not cooperate with the subpoenas that they have issued in relation to the Hunter Biden scandals. I'll tell you what, you want to restore confidence in government, Congress, Jim Jordan, the rest of you, then arrest them for contempt. A subpoena is a legal notice that you must comply with. These people in the Department of Justice, they cannot say, I'm going to take the Fifth Amendment because I would incriminate myself. No, they're asking for information about Hunter Biden that they have. Arrest them for contempt. Reinstate your authority in Congress. Show the American people that you give a shit and you're going to do something about it instead of putting on this plastic banana, good time, rock and roll bullshit appearance of really giving a fuck about the country. Thank you, Republican Party. You failed once again by not taking action. Failed once again. Was it Representative Mace who came out when she said, hey, the mainstream media should be carrying this message? No. You have the authority in Congress to solve these problems right now. Don't just investigate, prosecute them from Congress. I know that's a strange way to talk about congressional power and authority. You force them through subpoena to comply. If they don't, folks, they have authority and they can have them arrested. Right? If a local chicken shit judge can have you arrested, if a little chicken shit district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia, can demand the President of the United States and his entire administration and legal team appear before her dumbass and submit to arrest, then why can't Jim Jordan do it? Why can't Congress do it? Because they won't. Because they won't. Now here's one for you. Hey, YouTube, you bunch of jackasses. Did you know, folks, did you know that YouTube is demonetized a YouTube channel because they had a video of Democrats challenging election results publicly? They had a montage of Democrats. This is a bad election. It was stolen. The Republicans are bad, right? All these Democrats challenging election results. So YouTube says, well, you want to do that, huh? Then we're going to take away your money. It makes sense. Don't show the hypocrites out there. Don't allow you and me to share information that shows that they're hypocrites. All of them. All of them. I tell you, Mr. Uman, what do you got next? Who's up next? Who wants to step up and make your voice heard while we can? Name redacted said this type of activity kicked off in the early 90s. What else happened in the early 90s? Oh, yeah. The implementation of the concept called political correctness. So, name redacted continues. No real consequences came out of it all this time. We can now expect much more and worse. Oh, you bet. This is called the slippery slope. Now, while the slippery slope argument is a logical fallacy in philosophy, when applied to government, especially political institutions, parties, philosophies, and agendas, the slippery slope is a valid argument because it's demonstrable. It can be demonstrated with every instance of tyranny. The government, the institution that controls everything, starts off very small, and it expands its power over time, incrementally. Sometimes they go much quicker than others. Sometimes they take a long time. In the case of the United States of America, they've taken a long time. Why? Because we have one of the most solid, reliable foundations in the world, the Constitution, which is resting upon the Declaration of Independence, which rests upon the rights that we have, the human right to life, liberty, property ownership, pursuit of happiness, locomotion, the right to breathe air, the right to eat food. Notice how they're coming after all those things? Let me tell you, thank you, name redacted. Let's clear you off the screen because I got a topic to cover. You're going to enjoy the shit out of this, folks. You're going to enjoy this one really good. Now, there's a story that came up today. I saw the headline and I stopped right there because I want to go and open it up with you so you get my immediate reaction. Here's the headline. Charlie Kirk interviews the Gadsden flag champion, the 12-year-old named Jaden, and he has an American patriotic message. He's got a message for Americans, for all Americans. So now I'm going to open up the story and we're going to read it together. We're going to discover together what a 12-year-old boy, not even a man, 12 years old, probably doesn't have any hair on his scrotum yet. But Charlie Kirk interviewed this young man. And he's got a message. Jaden said, if it didn't go viral, that is his story, they'd probably suspended me. So Charlie Kirk, who is a famous, shall we say, news and television and radio personality. He says, what is your advice to the other teenagers or soon-to-be teenagers that are afraid to speak up? I imagine what he's referring to is teenagers who think like Jaden, who love America, who are freedom, who are intelligent young people. So he says, what's your advice to other teenagers or soon-to-be teenagers? Because Jaden isn't even a teenager. He's 12. So this is Jaden. And this is what he said. This is what a boy says. And I hadn't read this, folks. I'm reading this for the first time right now with you. He says, I'd tell them to ponder this question. Would you rather have friends but live under a tyrannical system, or stand up for yourself and you're right, but maybe lose a few friends. I mean, I sat at lunch alone today, which was weird, like my friends didn't like me. That's interesting coming from a 12-year-old. Jaden said and told Charlie Kirk, hey, these kids are wearing pride pins. The school doesn't care about that political speech. But, you know, some of these kids said the Gadsden flag was a symbol of hate. Well, it's because they're ignorant little fucks. The education system, the educators, they're more like indoctrinators in school. Teachers, they're completely ignorant of what the flag is. The Gadsden flag, the don't tread on me flag, the yellow flag that is a patriotic symbol of standing up to tyranny. These people know nothing about our Constitution, our law, our history, anything, but they wanted to condemn a little boy. So this was the Vanguard School Board of Directors, folks. And they decided to vote intelligently to allow little Jaden to wear a don't tread on me patch on his school backpack. This is a brave young man who stood up to teachers and stood up to peer pressure. That is to say, a bunch of rainbow flag wearing pride, little sissy snowflake tree hugging freaks who have no concept about anyone else's rights, just their feelings that are based on a bunch of, how do I put this? Fear porn propaganda coming from a bunch of just America-hating scumbag teachers, folks. This is what they're doing. This is what they're teaching kids. Man says, those friends are not friends. They are cowards, or have parents that are cowards and told them to stay away from him. You bet. Exactly, Mr. Uman. Exactly. This is a smart kid. He's got a good life ahead of him. He's got a great brain, a good mind. His parents probably taught him that America is a good place. Jane Dixon says, don't let blue hair jokes teach your children anymore. Blue hair, green, pink, purple, red. Every time I see an adult, and folks, I understand that we all like to be fashionable and have fun and screw around. But today, in this world, if you're wearing fruity colored dyed hair, you're making a political statement. You're telling everyone around you your politics. I remember years ago, it was 2002, 2003, the first time I saw an adult, someone in their 20s, wearing some dyed hair. It was a woman who works, a young woman who worked for a municipality government in the building department. And she had one little lock off the front of her head that was dyed dark blue, and she had brown hair. And I thought, hey, ain't that cute? A little bit of dye in the hair. Over 20 years ago. Here we are. That's a great, don't let these people teach your kid. Don't let them talk to your kid. Don't let them talk to your kid. I mean, this is a beautiful story. I know we're running out of time, man. I know. Nebraska, their governor. Well, he is the second governor to do just this, issuing an executive order for the state defining what constitutes male and female genders. I don't want to use the word sex anymore. Is it, what's the sex, male or female? I'm tired of using the word sex to describe gender. Because they go, well, if we want to talk about sex, it's just about sex. Male and female sex is sex. No. Talking about sex is intercourse and should not be a conversation any adult has with children, except in the context of reproductive biology, which requires a male penis and a female vagina. Anyways, let me move on. The governor passed or signed an executive order, which means it only applies to the government. It does not apply to citizens. But what this executive order does is it defines boy, girl, man, woman, and includes biological descriptions, like penis and vagina, to clarify any inconsistencies in policy initiatives, in court rulings, etc. And this is what the governor said. It is common sense that men do not belong in women's only spaces, meaning showers, changing rooms, dressing rooms, right? And he says this, as governor, it is my duty to protect our kids and women, he says women's athletics, which means providing single-sex spaces for women's sports, bathrooms, and changing rooms. Folks, it's more than just that as far as I am concerned. It should also be about safety. I believe the governor should have gone further, and that all governors who care about the country, the Constitution, and about women, children, safety, etc., he should have proclaimed that gender bender types have psychological disorders that frequently result in criminal behavior of a sexual nature. And statistical data could substantiate this claim and the additional threat posed by allowing transgender fruit salad types into women-only areas where they can more easily victimize women and children. See, that's what they're doing, is they're using this gender crap, this fake gender, this trans ideology to gain access so they can intimidate women, sexually harass women, as well as molesting and worse, right? This governor could have told the story of all the trans men, right, out there who have committed these crimes. I can tell you a trans story that I am familiar with because it occurred very near to me, right? An employee at a Native American casino in California, but it's in Native American casino, which is federal land, not state land, not California. There was a trans man who was loitering in the women's bathroom. And it was creeping the women out. And this was 7 years ago? I think 7 years ago. Well, they ended up kicking his tranny ass out of there because they were not bound by California bullshit tranny laws. These people are dangerous. Not to mention they're just downright fucking weird. And everything is about them. They use their gender ideology, their gender identity to allow them into areas where they can be sexually gratified mentally by being around women where they shouldn't be. It's exactly what all of this is. Uman says, haven't had the time to look into it, but I saw there is a trend of young men taking selfies in women's restrooms. Probably TikTok too, because they're a bunch of sickos. Yeah, thank you, Uman. I agree totally. They don't want you talking about this, folks. They don't want you thinking about it. Hold them accountable. Folks, chance favors the prepared mind. I hope this show today, and I hope the passion that I used in my speech, my discussion, I hope it inspires people to start thinking for themselves and think about what freedom, liberty, and life is really about, and how the government is changing all of that very quickly. They're bringing about a very nasty, tyrannical state. Tomorrow is going to be the Friday free-for-all. I'll start the day with another Zero Dark 30. And then Sunday, we're going to do The Zoo, a Sunday night live at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Last week, we had an incredible turnout, almost 500 people live. For a while there, we're ticking down in the number of people live, and now it's starting to tick back up. It's because you are sharing the internet address and letting people know it's time to wake up. And you guys are supporting the channel with your, CashApp, Venmo, PayPal, as well as Super Chat donations. And that helps pay for everything we do through all of our social media networks, through our internet, shall we say, broadcasting network, and the preparedmind.club. Everything is paid for out of pocket, folks. You guys are supporting it, and that means I'm going to continue to support you and stand up for your rights. And I want to thank you for helping spread the word. Chance favors the prepared mind. I know you've got one. Keep using it. Semper Fi, Godspeed, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Whew.